Get ready to play some explosive tennis with the Head Boom MP 2024. Now in its second generation, the Boom MP is updated with Auxetic 2 material placed in the yoke and handle to optimize response. The racket remains easy to swing with its 11-ounce strung weight and head-light balance. Meanwhile, the Boom's unique head shape pairs with a 16x19 string pattern to provide easy access to spin and a forgiving sweet spot. I was on the review of the first iteration of this Boom MP, and I found this second generation to be very familiar from the baseline. I was getting that really easy access to depth. The string pattern on this is quite open, and the head is nice and wide as well. So I was getting that extra arc off my shots, and as a flat ball hitter, it's always interesting to watch when I'm getting that extra flight and extra net clearance. I did have some issues that when I was trying to hit the ball a little too flatly, and did find that I needed to add topspin to find my targets. For this racket too, I found it to offer good directional control, but it's not what I would consider a really precise racket, something like the Prestige where you're getting the ball right where you want it. At net, I really was impressed by the comfort level of this racket. When I was missing the sweet spot, I really didn't feel any jarring sensations. I did find it best for me to hit the ball deep and just keep it nice and simple. I wasn't quite getting the touch that I would like from the racket at net. On serve, I loved the access to spin. This is where I thought the racket was shining the most. I was not getting tons of free power, good enough for my game, but I really liked the spin aspect. Overall, I find this to be just a slight update to the previous version with a slight change in feel, perhaps slightly softer, and offers good depth and easy spin.
Right away, I felt very comfortable with this racket. I felt very familiar in how it played and how it responded. And so eventually I took a look at the specs and realized that this racket was almost nearly identical to my racket of choice right now, which is the Speed MP. So from the ground, I felt this racket felt very fast swinging, probably even a little bit more faster swinging than my own racket. I was able to get good power, good depth on my shots with it, and also really liked the amount of spin I was able to get on my shots. I felt like I could get a ton of topspin on my forehand and a lot of spin on my slice serves to make it very effective. Up at net, once again, very quick to get into position. I also was able to get good pop on my volleys there as well. I think the most noticeable difference between this racket and my own was the feel. This one felt maybe a little bit more comfortable, but also felt more muted to me. So it made it a little bit more difficult to know where I was hitting it on the string bed, which because of that, I felt like my control suffered a little bit, especially touch and depth. Overall, this is a very user-friendly racket with great amount of spin and power.
I also play tested the first generation of this Boom MP, and I have to agree with a lot of what the other play testers have already said. First thing I noticed right off the bat was that this racket was easy to swing. It was easy to generate racket head speed and generate spin potential. I really loved that on the baseline when I was whipping my wrist and hitting some short angled ground strokes to pull my opponent off the court, one of my favorite shots to hit. I also noticed that the launch angle was a little bit higher compared to the Speed MP that I've been previously playtesting, so that equaled to me a little bit better depth, which I greatly appreciated. Now, the racket is called the Boom, and I was expecting loads of power. However, I thought it was a controllable power. I never felt like I was too out of control with my shots. And when I came to playing points though, I did crave a little bit more control. I was finding that I was having to be a little bit more conscious of where I was going and maybe aim for some bigger targets when I was being a little bit more aggressive. Now, compared to the previous generation, I have to agree with Tiffany. I found that it was a little bit of a softer feel and maybe just a little bit more control than that first generation. Now, my one negative with this racket is that it is a 295 gram racket. I typically prefer rackets around 300 grams. So I did notice some instability at times, whether I was hitting a ball on the baseline that was hit really hard at me, or if I was reaching for a volley up at net. The racket was twisting just slightly in my hands. However, I do think this is a great platform racket and easily customizable by adding some weight. Overall, this is a really user-friendly racket, and players that were fans of the previous generation will have an easy switch.
I too was named to this play test of the 2024 Head Boom MP, and a lot of you know that my game probably revolves more around directional control of the ball. and I probably absorb more pace than I'm adding to the ball. So my experience of this racket was the Boom MP definitely leans towards being a nimble, agile racket. As Britt mentions, about 295 grams, so you're barely eking about 11 ounces of strung weight out of it. And in terms of racket head speed, for the player that really likes to work with that, with not a ton of mass in the hoop, I think this racket is great. I, on the other hand, probably prefer a racket that doesn't, force me to swing faster and still remain stable. That said, I'm amazed at how much stability and just overall performance they are able to pack into this frame. I would also reflect that the Auxeticness of this frame definitely makes it feel a little softer and offers better dampening quality as well. The spacing of the strings definitely grant you easy access to spin. I probably was challenged a little bit with a backhand slice, and maybe that was relating more to the lack of weight in the hoop than the string spacing itself. But overall, just a turnkey racket, easy, user-friendly, as everyone else mentioned. And to boot, I would also say this is a great platform racket. I would definitely give it the DTL treatment with a leather grip and maybe just a little weight in the hoop. Overall, just an outstanding play test.
For this review, we strung the Boom MP with Head Links Tour and Hawk Touch at 52 pounds. For more information on this racket or anything else tennis related, be sure to visit us at Tennis Warehouse, Tennis Warehouse Europe, or Tennis Only.